Hi! In this session, we are going to talk about information and communication technologies and development. As the world has entered the era of Fourth Industrial Revolution, we are experiencing the coexistence of anxiety and hope. The disappearance of physical boundaries and the advent of a completely different production and consumption paradigm make us anxious. At the same time, we are excited about this change in paradigm, which can provide new opportunities, particularly for developing countries. Internet can make a positive impact on economic productivity, health, education, poverty reduction, and sustainable development in developing countries. It can also promote social accountability, transparency, democracy, and aid effectiveness. Hence, recently, ICT for Development has become a core field of international development cooperation. Information and communication technology can be more useful in developing countries in two broad ways. First, ICT can advance the technological level of developing countries via leapfrogging. Leapfrogging is a word that often appears when describing recent technological innovations. Leapfrogging refers to the phenomenon of technological development, not developing sequentially by stepping through existing stages, but skipping intermediate stages and immediately entering a higher development level. Leapfrogging is especially prominent in the information and communication field. For example, the spread of mobile phone is rapidly increasing in Africa and Asia. Establishing a landline telephone network requires enormous financial resources to install telephone lines to every home. However, mobile phones have relatively low equipment costs. As a result, people are jumping straight to mobile phones without going through landline phones. Second, it is expected that the changes in digital-based business models can lower entry barriers to entering the market by providing new opportunities for entrepreneur creation and innovation in developing countries. Accordingly, many countries are recognizing ICT as a new growth engine that will revitalize the stagnant economy. Many ICT-based development cooperation projects have been carried out by the World Bank, the International Telecommunication Union, and United Nations Development Plan. In academia, since the 1980s, an independent academic field called Information and Communication Technology for Development, or ICT4D, has been created and has accumulated the results of theory, methodologies, and empirical research. Ever since, the discussions on ICT4D are active in the development cooperation. However, although development cooperation in the ICT4D is increasing overall, the focus areas are somewhat different from country to country. For example, the United States is committed to using ICT for boosting global efforts against infectious diseases and other diseases, and most programs include a component related to the ICT. On the other hand, France focuses on the use of ICT on agricultural and environmental research. Japan and Korea focus on support for information and communication technology and other technological fields. In contrast, in the United Kingdom and Australia, a large portion of ICT4D resources are invested in supporting universities or scientific institutions conducting ODA-eligible research for various purposes. Due to the nature of information and communication technology, ODA, the participation of private companies is very important. The partnership is called Public-Private Partnership, or PPP. It is a system for the government to procure and implement public infrastructure and services by utilizing the resources and the expertise of the private sector. Under a PPP system, a private sector can build, operate, and maintain public infrastructure and invest in services traditionally provided by the government. Now, Eileen will introduce a case of PPP in ICT4D.
An example where Korea uses information and communication technologies for development can be seen in its smart grid development. This is also a case based on public-private partnerships, making it even more interesting to look at. First, let me explain the issue that was aimed to being tackled within this project. Since climate change is taking an increasing and important part in terms of development, the South Korean government aimed to ensure a stable energy supply for its population while reducing carbon emissions through energy efficiency. For that, the idea was to create a smart grid, hence a solution based on ICT that has access to advanced data and would therefore be able to efficiently manage electricity supply and demand. In this context, the Ministry of Knowledge Economy developed, together with the Korea Smart Grid Association and the Korean Agency for Technology and Standards, a roadmap for the implementation of smart grids, including its objectives and milestones, as well as the overall goal. However, for the implementation process, the government assigned mostly the companies of the private sector, such as SK Telecom, POSCO ICT, and LG Electronics. Research institutions for developing technologies further are involved as well. While the realization of the project is mostly through the private sector, investment and funding are shared, but mainly supported by the public sector through financial support and incentives from the government. Therefore, we can see the implementation of Smart Grid in South Korea as an ICT-4D project in an ecological and social context, which is based on public-private partnerships to share expertise and pool resources. Another, but very different example that combines public-private partnership and ICT-4D can be seen in the creation of a South Korean National Digital Library. The aim of the Korean government was to provide its citizens with unlimited online access to digital resources such as academic journals, historical documents, and books in order to increase the literacy rate and educational opportunities. This project was initiated by the Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism, along with other government bodies. It provided policies, regulatory support, and funding. However, the realization was also assigned to the private companies. Over time, both parties, private and public sector, agreed to extend the services of the National Digital Library so that users now also have access to different courses, for instance, regarding poetry. Those two examples give insights in how ICTs can be used for development, but also how a partnership between private and public sector can be effective.
Thank you, Eileen. Developing countries, African countries in particular, are also making active efforts to link up with the multinational companies as well as aid donors to develop their own information and communication technology environments. For example, there is a Smart Africa Alliance. It is a Pan-African movement that is formed to expand information and communication technology infrastructure and to pursue positive digital impact. The Smart Africa Alliance, which presents One Digital Africa as its ultimate vision, aims to transform Africa into a knowledge economy by securing access to affordable broadband and utilizing information and communication technologies. What is especially noteworthy is that the entity providing the aid is not just the government. Rather, the initiative emphasizes the participation of overseas private companies. Participating members of the alliance largely consist of the government, private companies related to ICT, and academia. 30 countries in Africa and private companies such as Huawei, Tata Communication, MTN, Orange, Facebook, Intel, and Microsoft are participating, as well as international digital organizations, entrepreneurs, and startups, and members of academia, including Carnegie Mellon University. Early on, Korean companies also actively participated. The chairman of KT attended the first meeting in 2013 and delivered a keynote speech. KT also managed the exhibition together with the Rwandan government. In addition, the participation of Korean private companies further increased in the third meeting held under the theme of Rapid Progress toward Smart Cities. KT introduced the KT Digital Healthcare Solution. Not just KT, the Korean Cloud Industry Association and Hangul and Computer signed an MOU to promote entry into the African market. KT has been still active in public-private partnership for digitalization in Africa. In this session, we discussed how ICT can be used in the context of development. In the following session, we are going to have a look at the history of ICT development in Korea. Thank you.